listening to the Blue Jay Breakdown.
Welcome to the Blue Jay Breakdown and a Bellinghausen and Drake Keeler, talking all things Blue Jay women's basketball. We saw some good wins for Creighton over the stretch, but the streak was unfortunately ended in stores. But for good reason. It was a UConn team that we know is great. Before then, though, let's talk about all the good stuff. The 20-point victory at St. John's. What impressed you most out of that win? A great one in the conference.
Yeah, always good to beat a good St. John's team by 20 on the road. So that was really impressive. The big three was they scored the first 45 points of this game. It's, obviously you're always going to expect them to carry a big load, but they quite literally scored all those points. Barely anyone else had taken a shot, and they were doing it really efficiently. I believe they ended up shooting, above 60% from the field. So they were absolutely clicking. That was just really impressive to see those three all at the top of their games in the same contest for sure. And they played good defense kind of the whole way, held them to 50-some points. That was really impressive.
Yeah, Creighton shot 57.7% from the field, 50% from three. When Creighton does that, they're just not losing. There's no way.
Yeah, it's hard to beat many teams when they shoot it that well, especially Creighton, when they're going to put up those shots.
Right. Lauren Jensen in that game, 20 points. Morgan Molly with 20. Emma Ronsick with 14. And then even Molly Mogensen chipping in there with 9 points. So every starter has really lived up to those expectations. And you talk about the win streaks. There's so much pressure going into that, but they continue to deliver game after game. Did that impress you, too, that there weren't any losses in that stretch that maybe that could have been 50-50 games, too?
Yeah, absolutely. They held on against, I think it was Seton Hall, when they really struggled in that fourth quarter offensively. Like, they've had, moments that have been kind of ugly, but they worked through that. There's no 11-game win streak that's, not going to be impressive, really.
Right.
Maybe if the non-con was like super soft, and sometimes teams get off to great starts doing that, but like an 11-game win streak all in conference play is, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And they've worked through all the challenges they faced on that stretch for sure. And the last few games before the loss, they were winning comfortably. So that was really impressive.
It was funny, though, because during the UConn game, the AP poll came out. So Creighton started the game at number 20 and then
moved down a spot.
I think they were either tied or maybe even beating UConn at that point. But, that just shows the difference in conference strength and maybe a lack of some parity in there that kind of hurts Creighton in those rankings. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the part of the conversation with the UConn game is. When you look at Creighton's tournament seeding, they're pretty much just they've been stuck at a 6 seed throughout this whole win streak, and that's because there's not a lot of strength in the conference. It's going to only have three NCAA tournament teams, and that's makes it hard for the top teams to keep moving up when you don't have the kind of benefit of the doubt that UConn carries, and the schedule that they've had, of course. But yeah, so that obviously this loss was their opportunity to really make a statement. They didn't quite do that. But yeah, UConn's obviously very good. They'll do that too. They've crushed pretty much every Big East team. So yeah.
Yeah, 73-53 win for UConn again at the XL Center. It was very close. Yeah. It was tied at halftime. Creighton got off to a 5-point lead in that third quarter to start things off, and things were going well for Creighton. It was good defense. It was consistent. And then what went wrong?
Yeah, it was a great first half, just great first half of basketball. Creighton was playing great defense. I felt like Leah Edwards started 0 for 4, 2 turnovers. They were really swarming her. Paige Bueckers just wasn't quite getting great shots off, and felt like UConn, trying to spring free off the ball, couldn't do it. So that was really impressive. Obviously, some really impressive shot making that you'll see from Creighton every game. Lauren Jensen, Morgan Molly hitting tough shots. And that led to a 5-point lead and start the third quarter. And that's the point where you're like, oh, they really might be in this till the end. And then, of course, UConn comes back with a 17-0 run. The defense kind of did just fall off during that stretch, but that wasn't quite the key because they scored, I think, 5 points to start the quarter. I think they scored 5 more the rest of the almost last 9 minutes of the quarter. And that's not going to get it done against another good team for sure. So the offense just kind of fell apart. turning it over. I mean, they only finished with like 12 turnovers. It felt like that number should have been higher, but I think it was just poorly timed giveaways as well, and they just fell out of a flow on offense, and UConn's a good defensive team. Yeah,
and Creighton's never beaten UConn in program history, so it's kind of like a monkey on their back. It's a hump they want to get over. It felt like they got closer to it, but you can still see there's a little bit of a gap in recruiting and just the amount of talent maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously Creighton wanted to prove that 44-point loss they took at home wasn't representative. This game probably is closer to that. UConn's probably 15, 20 points better Creighton most times out there. And obviously the Blue Jays are talented enough so where once in a while they'll absolutely be able to put up a challenge. But UConn's really good. They're really talented, and they are going to be one of the contenders, in March.
And it's crazy because the 5 players that they have out could probably start a top 25 team in the nation.
They've dealt with so many injuries.
They've dealt with so many injuries. They're still so good. Gino's done, obviously, an amazing job at UConn. I know there's a lot of respect between those two programs. So it'll be fun to see as Creighton develops and as Flannery develops recruiting down the line of how much closer they can get to close that gap. I think it's just a matter of a year or two, really, that Creighton gets that win against UConn.
Yeah, I think, UConn's always going to have the talent, and Creighton's, not going to recruit quite at that level, which, is fine. Teams can pull those upsets regardless.
Absolutely.
And just with the way Creighton plays, they can get hot from 3. They're going to bring in talent. They're going to be well coached, executing well offensively, and yeah, there's going to be more chances, of course, and kind of as we look towards the rest of the season, this isn't a loss that knocks Creighton off track in any way. They're still set to, hopefully end the season strong.
And they should have a number 2 seed in that Big East tournament, which means they could match up against UConn once again for round 3.
They might get another crack at them. You would hope they will, just given they'll probably meet maybe Marquette as well. So that's going to be another tough one, especially in the Big East tournament. But yeah, they can clinch that number 2 seed on Saturday against Villanova. They'll probably get it regardless because Villanova has a game remaining against UConn, and they're 2 games behind now. But that's going to be good to. You want to see Creighton try to close it out, kind of
control their destiny,
continue the non-UConn winning streak.
Yeah, can they just still have a winning streak without factoring in the UConn team? So they play Villanova at home, like you mentioned, Saturday, 11 a.m., and that's on Big Fox, too, so exciting stuff, seeing more women's basketball on TV there. And then they play Xavier at home, and that'll be senior day next Tuesday, February 27th at 6. And then to round everything off, play a tough Seton Hall team out there in New Jersey. That's March 3rd, Sunday, 2 p.m., and then Big East tournament play, but we talked a little bit about that and where they'll be seated. How do you see this affecting March down the stretch with 3 games left?
Yeah, I think you want to see them just like I just said, continuing what they've done. Villanova, Seton Hall, 2 teams that can definitely challenge them. So you want to see them come up with the wins in those games. Obviously, they built up such a strong resume that they can afford to drop one, but you don't want to do that. They'll probably get the 2 seed in the Big East tournament. You want to see them cement themselves as the second best team in the Big East, and that's through the regular season, through the conference tournament. You want to see them in that Big East championship, and they'll probably end up with a 6 seed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they get up to a 5 seed, but probably stay in that 6 seed range. And that's a good place to be, for what they've done this season.
Yeah, lots to look forward to close out the season. You can follow Drake Keeler for all your Creighton women's basketball updates, game write-ups, tweeting in game. What else are you doing? Posting videos, taking pictures, whatever you can do out there. Drake, thanks so much for joining the Blue Jay Breakdown. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.